Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us for this overview video of the Synod Assembly 2021. Thank you very much for being a voting member to our assembly. I'm Bishop Laura Barbins, your new-ish bishop, and with me is our parliamentarian and Synod Assembly extraordinaire, Mr. John Sleesman. So we are here today to bring you a basic overview of what it's going to be like if you choose to come into the assembly, mostly via Zoom, although we'll talk a little bit about what it means to be in person as well. Which brings me to the fact that our assembly on June 12th, the morning, that Saturday morning, is a hybrid assembly. And this means that it's both in person and remote. So as we go through things, a lot of the stuff is going to be the same from last year if you were a voting member last year, but a few things are going to be simplified because we don't have that pesky bishop election. If you haven't ever participated in a Northeastern Ohio Synod Assembly before, we urge you, especially if you've never done it by Zoom, we urge you to be part of one of our practice sessions that are going to be held by Zoom for Zoom. And those are on Wednesday, June 9th at 2 different times during the day. One is at noon and one is at 7. And in those, you'll be able to practice the voting techniques that we're going to be talking about today, and you can ask any questions that you might have. The information about those practice sessions will be coming out in the e-news and perhaps even in dedicated emails that you registered with for the assembly. We hope that new or experienced in assembly matters, both virtual and in person, that this video is going to give you some of the basic information that you're going to need about the assembly.
Thank you, Bishop. For those of you that did attend the assembly last year remotely, a lot of this is going to be very similar. There are, however, a few differences, so we do urge you to follow closely when we go through this stuff. The tutorial videos that were recorded and posted on the Synod YouTube site last year remain valid, and you may wish to review those for more detailed information. The references in that material do often refer to the bishop's election. Those references, of course, are not relevant, but the rest of the material provides solid information that can supplement this presentation.
If you are attending the assembly in person, almost everything will seem normal as it was 2 years ago. Please note that in order to be at the assembly in person, you need to have registered to be there in person. We're going to reiterate that throughout our video today. One difference from our old normal will be the way that you vote, which is going to follow the same as last year. So in other words, all of our voting, whether you're in person or online, will be through turning technologies, just like we used last year. It's either a website, you can get there through your browser, or getting an app for one of your mobile devices. We will not be using those nifty little voting machines in person like we have in the past. Your nifty little voting machine will be a laptop, a smartphone, or a tablet. Since you'll be physically present, if you are at the Night Center, you'll not need to watch a live stream or be connected to Zoom because, of course, you'll have us in person.
However, if you are attending the assembly remotely, you will need to watch the assembly live stream. You must connect to the Zoom meeting to propose a motion or make an inquiry of any sort to the assembly. Zoom will be used as the only remote method to gain floor recognition, as it was last year. But let's back up a bit and review the overall process of the assembly on Saturday morning.
If you're attending the assembly at the Knight Center, you must be registered. Again, you must be registered for physical attendance. When you registered, you must have said, I will be there in person. The capacity in the building is limited by Summit County occupancy restrictions, and your name is going to be checked and authorized when you arrive. If you don't have the proper access credentials, you won't be able to enter the building. You will, again, need to be able to vote through a device, and you can reference, if you would like, last year's YouTube video called How to Vote. And this will tell you and give you an update on all that turning technology. But otherwise, you don't need any other technology. You can, if you want, have a tablet or laptop there so that you could see the online assembly materials, but you could also print those out if needed.
If you attend the assembly remotely, you will need the voting application. Again, a review of last year's video on the Synod YouTube website on how to vote may be a useful guide. You're probably going to get tired of us referring to last year's videos, but we'll do that repeatedly. You will also need to be able to watch the assembly live in order to get the session ID code that is required to vote. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Right now, I want to turn to some of the boring parts, starting with parliamentary procedure. With this year's hybrid assembly, we had to balance in-person and remote issues, so there may need to be some differences in how things are done. The understanding of all participants on the framework of rules we work under is important. There are 3 videos from last year: parliamentary procedure, special rules of procedure, and how to gain recognition, that are slightly changed, but are good references to discuss specifics. More generally, please refer to pages 8 or 9 if you're attending in person, or pages 15 and 16 remote in the pre-assembly materials. Those pages indicate parliamentary language for introducing motions, also present 2 tables that indicate various motions that can be made during a meeting. For more information, again, last year's videos, or be prepared to ask questions on the pre-assembly Zoom meetings, or send questions to assembly@neos-elca.org. That's, again, assembly@neos-elca.org. I also note our special rules of procedure, which may be found on pages 19 to 21 of the pre-assembly material. Special rules are either changes from, restrictions to, or additional rules that can be used when the standard parliamentary rules and Robert's Rules of Order do not meet the needs of the assembly. Generally, these rules seldom change from one year to the next, although there are always minor changes. If you have a question about any of those, please send an email to the assembly@neos-elca.org address, and you will be contacted with more information.
Okay, you can wake back up now. I know all that boring parliamentary stuff is not the best, but gotta be done. Thank you very much, John. We're now going to move to 2 topics that were a bit confusing to people last year, and will also be part of that practice Zoom that we are going to have on June 9th at noon and 7. The videos of those meetings, those practice Zooms, will be posted on our YouTube page. So in case you can't make noon or 7 on June 12th, you'll still be able to view those discussions.
Now, I'd like to know how come I get to say all the boring parts and you get to make the jokes about them?
Because
But
I'm the
anyway,
bishop.
well, that is true. Anyway, the next boring topic is how to vote. It's maybe boring, but it's also one of the most important things. So if you have questions about this or are uncertain about it, please do pay attention and stay awake. The voting procedure is basically the same as last year. So those of you who attended last year's assembly or should already be fairly familiar with it. There's more information about this on pages 7 and 14 of the pre-assembly packet. Providing the certainty and security for the voting process is one reason that voting members are required to register in advance of the assembly and are required to log into the voting site to provide unique identities. All voting members whose credentials were approved by the Credentials Committee should receive an acknowledgement of your registration with Turning in early June that includes a unique login ID, that's a password. Whenever you vote, you will be required to be logged into Turning using your email address and the unique credentials, and also to provide a session ID or a voting code that will be announced during the meeting before each vote. That double security and making sure that you are online at a given time when votes are conducted is to meet the requirements of Ohio law for electronic meetings. It is very important that you activate your voting credentials through Turning before the assembly business session convenes on the morning of June 12th. Waiting until the assembly starts to meet may mean that you will not complete the process before the first vote is open, and thereby may miss your ability to vote until your login is verified. You may log into Turning either via a web browser page, www.ttpoll, that's TTPOLL.com, or through an app, Turning Point, which is available both for Android and Apple devices. Those can be downloaded to a smartphone or tablet. Please see the other Synod videos instructions that will come from Turning for more information on that. Be sure to download those ahead of time. Access is available as soon as you receive the ID codes. Although without a session ID, you will only be able to verify a connection, and you will not be able to answer sample questions. We will be setting up those kinds of practice sessions on June 9th, which should help with voting, and the assembly doors, physical or online, will open early on June 12th to allow for final adjustments before the assembly formally begins. Again, please review last year's videos, pages 7 or 14 of the pre-assembly packet. As we've talked before, disregard the portions of the videos relating to bishop-specific information. Other practices and procedures remain the same this year.
So thank you, John. And just to reiterate, if this was at all confusing to you, please join us on June 9th at noon or 7, where we're going to practice Turning technologies and that voting app. And if you're having problems downloading it or anything like that, another avenue, if you're having problems, is to go to your pastor or deacon and see if they can help. And if they can't, they will get information for you. Our final topic is how to gain recognition. Now, this is in case you want to address the assembly on one of our resolutions or regarding the budget or any other voting or for any other reason. And it's slightly changed from last year and depends on where you are. Because if you're in person, you gain recognition one way. If you're online, you gain it another. For those of you who will be attending in person, the process for recognition is very traditional. It's the one we've been using for, well, as long as John Sleesman has been going to Synod assemblies. All you need is you proceed to a microphone, and there, the chair, whoever is chairing the meeting, normally me, from what I understand, will recognize you as appropriate. If you have an urgent matter that is allowed to interrupt debate and business, as per Robert's Rules of Order, please make sure that you go to a microphone and ask for immediate recognition so that your priority request can be identified.
I'm actually not sure when microphones were invented, but going to microphones actually predates my attendance at Synod assemblies. Standing up and yelling was probably what they had to do when Henry Roberts wrote Robert's Rules of Order after the Civil War. But they've been yelling in the House of Representatives since they adopted Jefferson's Rules of Procedure back in 1789, so who knows. In any case, if you're remote, you don't have microphones to go to, so that's what I'll talk about a little bit more. But again, I need to note that last year's videos do remain references. The Zoom meeting will be used as the method of allowing remote voting members to fully participate in the activity of the assembly. Now, full participation legally means allowing you the ability to be recognized and to speak to the assembly if you so wish. We're assuming here that you understand and experience and have experience with Zoom. If not, you may wish to watch the How to Zoom video on the Synod YouTube site from last year. More information on Zoom is found on page 13 of the pre-assembly material. In Zoom, to ask that you be recognized to speak to the assembly, you will need to click on the chat icon to open the chat window, and then send a chat message to the participant who will be identified as recognition. This message should usually start by indicating what you want to do, such as make a motion, offer an amendment, speak for, speak against, ask a question, whatever. Also, please include the information that you would normally give when you are recognized, your name and the congregation or organization you represent. Because of limited time ability for the assembly, if it is possible to have your request read out and a simple response given, rather than recognizing you for a live presentation, please indicate that you do not require speaking directly to the assembly. This will allow slightly less lag time in presenting material. But you do have the privilege of requesting personal recognition. So if that is important, please indicate that so we can make sure that you can directly speak to the other voting members. If you wish to make a priority motion remotely that is allowed under Robert's Rules of Order to interrupt the business of the assembly, please start your message with an asterisk, that is a star or two, to make sure that those reading the message highlighted in a list of people to be recognized. In most cases, the requests will be passed along to the presider in the order in which they are received, integrating both those who are present at the assembly in the room and those who are remote. In accordance with parliamentary rules, there are two exceptions. Asterisk requests, because of privilege, are recognized next. During debate, if there are people who wish to speak both for and against a motion, as much as possible, people will be recognized alternately on these viewpoints. Also, when an amendment is made, the requests already received for the main motion will be held, since they are given a lower priority to those that come in who wish to speak on the amendment. Please word requests as clearly and briefly as possible, with the time limits of the assembly and the need to confine business to a tight agenda so that we can get on to more important things like bishop installations. I have to butter her up, it's her first year. The more easily the information can be gathered, the faster we can proceed with business. But if you have an important point, please do make sure to present it. Voting members have an inherent right and responsibility to both understand what is occurring. So you do need to understand how to get information and raise issues, and to be able to be heard with their opinions. Each message received through chat will be transcribed and given to the parliamentarian, who will sort them as necessary and pass the information along to the presider. Messages are received in sequence, and again, we're going to have to figure out what that sequence is between the remote and the in-person access. So give us a little bit of extra time, and that's about all I can tell you. We will get them to the presider as quickly as possible so that she, or if someone else is in the chair, he can acknowledge that.
During the assembly, just like last year, there are going to be a bunch of ably bodied and minded people sitting at a help desk, ready to help out. I know for a fact that last year they were excellent, because I had to call in several times myself on Friday to the help desk. They'll help you with connections to the Zoom meeting, with the voting app, and to help with any other technical problems that might come up. They're going to relay any issues that might need to be higher up the food chain. So if I need to know something, or the parliamentarian needs to know something, all of that stuff will get escalated as necessary. There is help desk information, and instead of me spewing it out in this video, it's all in your pre-assembly packet. That is all we've got for today, I think, John. Yeah?
Oh, we can probably come up with things, but
oh, sure.
It'd either be boring, or they wouldn't really think it was appropriate, because we'd be going off topic.
So once again, thank you so much for caring enough about our synod and the future of our church that you have volunteered to spend a Saturday morning listening to the business of our synod. Our voting members are so important to how it is that we conduct our business in the ELCA. This is genuinely how we are church together. And so thank you, Parliamentarian John Sleesman, and I thank you for your attention to this. Once again, please read through your pre-assembly materials. Please, as you need them, look at videos from last year on our YouTube page. And finally, I can't say enough, to be at those practice meetings on June 9th, or at least look at them when they are uploaded on June 9th. The noon one will be up there in the afternoon. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing some of you actually in person. Woohoo! There is that little thing of a bishop's installation, and I hope that you can join in on that, either in person if you've registered for that, or coming in via the live stream, and that is June 12th at 2 p.m. So until we see one another.
Yeah, Bishop?
Yeah?
When you mentioned the installation, that does remind me, we should also reemphasize, if anyone wants to plan to attend that in person, same problem, they need to be registered for that, because they will need to be verified when they come into the building.
Thank you, John. Yes, you absolutely needed to have pre-registered for that assembly, for that installation, to be there in person. I think that's it then, John.
I think so too.
All right, blessings to you all, and until we actually see one another, God's peace.